Figure it out. Did that fix the sound in YouTube? Anybody? Mic check in YouTube. YouTube mic check. Aha! Cool. All right, maybe for next time I'm in the office on this new computer, because my old computer here blew up. I got, like, so, I mean, I love living in all these different places, but trying to juggle all these different computers sometimes and all this technology, especially as someone who's not great at technology, gets a little bit hectic sometimes. But we're up and running at least for now. Everybody can hear me, and we'll push through. What a heck of a day today, right? This was insane. I am an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRECIPIC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure. We didn't do an afternoon meeting yesterday because Josh did conversations with a pro trader, and I had to leave a little bit early. I hope Josh did well. Not sure if anybody was listening and can let me know if he did well. I can go back and watch it myself. I probably will at some point. But yesterday I had gotten all out of Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Today I got back into Microsoft and Amazon, but I'm very light. I also got into a really small pins position. I did not keep any of that VFS. Josh always does great. Love it. I did not keep any of that VFS. We'll see what happens with that. This VFS saved my day. If it wasn't for that, I mean, my swing trades, I mean, my TQQQ short this morning didn't hurt either. But before we look at this crazy 5-minute chart, let's start with the daily. That is not a good-looking daily candle. Oh, man. You know, we had been wanting to see if we were going to get a potential pivot high on the daily chart in the market that would continue the trend. And we thought maybe that was it 2 trading sessions ago. Yesterday was really strong. We were able to push through. And then NVIDIA after hours yesterday, I mean, that earnings report is just absolutely incredible. And we could, discuss, it went up too much into it, and there's a very high valuation. All that stuff is accurate. And I was actually kind of calling for in the morning meeting a sell the news event there, a fade the news event, kind of cautiously that maybe that could happen. But even with that, there's no denying that it was an incredible report, but that doesn't mean that they can't sell it. What's impressive to me is just the degree to which they sold everything today. And Chris in the VTF here was making a good point earlier when he was saying that it could just be really more selling in front of Jackson and in front of Jerome Powell at Jackson tomorrow, especially if anybody remembers last year. Last year, Jackson Hole led to a massive sell-off in the market. We looked at it pre-market a little bit this morning. But the downtrend that started at Jackson Hole at the end of August and went all through September, so just over a month of selling, brought the SPY down about $60. So if the same thing were to happen, which it's obviously not, going to be the same thing because it's never the same, but that would bring us down to like 385 in the SPYs if we got a similar move. So 385 in the SPYs. If it were to happen, would bring us somewhat towards the low of the year. We would almost be there. And again, that happened in a really short period of time last year. You can see it right here. August, we had the high, we had the big gap down here. I'm trying to remember if Jackson last year was the 19th. I think it was, and we closed on lows, and then Monday we had the huge gap down. Is that how that played out? I think that's it. So the 19th was Jerome Powell speaking, broke the uptrend that we were in after a big move. Obviously, there was a lot of volatility in 2022. But we basically sold from 425 on Jerome Powell down to just the immediate move. We eventually went a little bit lower, down to almost the bear market low at the end of September. So in just over a month, we went from, what did I just say, 425 to SPY on the 30th here, 357. Whew. Gross. Really nasty move down. So we'll see. So maybe some of this is selling just in front of Jerome Powell. I really don't know. What I do know is that we have been looking into this up move to see if we could recapture some key levels. You know, are we going to be able to get back above like SPY 445 on a closing basis? If that happens, it probably puts the bulls in a little bit more control. Maybe it makes the market more neutral. Or do we get a pivot high to continue the downtrend? It looked like that pivot high might come in 2 days ago. Yesterday we had a really strong day. We were able to negate that. NVIDIA comes out. They gap us up this morning, and then they crush this market. I still can't help but wonder where this market would have been if NVIDIA wasn't good. Because even with that report, you know, kind of crushing sell-side expectations, which we'll talk about that in a second, SPY here closed down 1.5%. The Qs closed down 2.4%, and the IWM closed down 1.9%. This is the opposite of the last time NVIDIA reported. Last time NVIDIA reported, it helped create a new bull market, pretty much. You had these insane moves that came from other stocks that continued because of NVIDIA really hyping up AI. And just hyping up AI, you can see the move that happened there. And then this was the opposite. This is a nasty, nasty daily candle today. It's a day to take notice of. It's a penalty box candle. Today's candle is similar but different in my mind to the July 27th high, which was really significant for us, to the August 2nd candle, the August 4th candle, and this other one was important, the August 10th candle. This is a really wide-ranging day here, really, really brutal sell-off. The intraday range is massive, 446 or so to 436. It's almost a $10 range on the SPYs. Just pretty much straight down. Also, if you look at this 5-minute chart, we had this one little rally here on the gap fill that actually ticked to new highs, and from that point on, at 10 a.m. on, just continuous brutal selling that never seemed to stop. SPYs are just awful. Qs, awful. Going over the Q daily chart, just a really damning candle here. Qs had gap back above 370, 372. If we could have closed up there, it would have been a change of character in this downtrend that we've been in for the month of August. And this is just a brutal bearish engulfing penalty box type candle that just absolutely wrecked us down. Interestingly enough, and I know the IWM also closed on lows, and the IWM still down over 1%, there was some relative strength in the Russell today, which is what I was looking for, but in a different way. I was looking for relative strength in the Russell, you know, from a bull market perspective, where this continues higher and SPYs and Qs rest a little bit, and there actually was some relative strength. This move from the opening sell-off to highs at 10 a.m. on the IWM was really impressive. And obviously we broke down and we closed on lows, but I don't think that this traded as bad intraday as the other indices. And you've got, you know, some names out there in some sectors that were good. XLF, I guess, did close red, but Bank of America was able to close green. KRE regional ETF, I think, closed green. Yep, seeing it up a 0.25% right now. KRE closed green. Some of these individual beat-up names that I've been looking at actually were able to be green today somehow. Snap closed green. This awful Roblox. You know, not like the bounce in Roblox was anything to write home about. But Roblox actually was able to close green. Another bad one that a couple of us have been eyeballing is this Penn, and Penn managed to close green. So there actually were a few names out there, a few sectors that weren't awful. XLE was not awful. Did close red on the day and close well off highs, but you know, not too bad, and spent a good portion of the day actually in positive territory. So there were some pockets of relative strength out there, along with the IWM. But the indices, anything related to the indices, big cap tech was terrible. Apple absolutely smoked today, down almost 3%, 2.75%. That's a big move for Apple. NVIDIA, despite absolutely blowing out numbers, was able to close red on the day. Amazon, destruction. Amazon down almost 3% on the day. Google, just real push through failure now on that 132, which is a key level that we've been looking at. Google down 2.25%. Some of the other AI related names that bounced really well initially and gapped up this morning off of Nvidia, like Palantir. Palantir's down 8.25%. Oof, that's bad. This thing was at $16 pre-market, closed at 14. It's a huge move for a $15 stock. AI, obviously, I took one little day trade in this AI. I lost a few dollars in it, small. AI off 12% on the day. They wrecked these names. Why? So again, some of it, maybe has nothing to do with the Nvidia earnings report. AMD, oh yeah, it's nasty. AMD almost back down to $100 at this point, down over 7%. It's a gross looking intraday chart on my other screen. So again, some of this might be due to just front running some selling off Jerome Powell tomorrow. If anyone remembers last year, it was the selling that came off that over the course of the end of August and all the month of September. And September seasonally weak to begin with was just really, really bad. But I kind of was trying to postulate in the morning meeting today, even though I was scared of the idea, them fading NVIDIA. The numbers were just so good. I don't know if Pat's here. If you can repost them, we can just kind of read them out loud. But they absolutely destroyed expectations. The guidance number, that revenue guidance number, I mean, just incredible. But what I was trying to say this morning in the chat pre-market and then in the actual meeting is that I do think that this beat in NVIDIA is different than that last beat in NVIDIA. Because no one was expecting insane numbers like that. And I don't remember, exactly what they were a full quarter ago, but I feel like they, whatever expectations were, it was like double those expectations. And just no one was expecting it, especially that guidance number. No one was expecting that. So when does the market move most? The market moves on surprises. And that was a really, really big surprise back at the end of May when those numbers came in that way. This report is different, and Pat here just posted them. So NVIDIA's second quarter adjusted EPS, $2.70 versus $2.07. So 63-cent beat on second quarter EPS. Solid. Look at this revenue number. Second quarter revenue, $13.5 billion versus an estimate of basically $11 billion. You're telling me that they beat by $2.5 billion on their second quarter revenue? Second quarter adjusted gross margin beat. Their margins are incredible. 71.2%. Estimate was 70. Second quarter gaming revenue beat. Data revenue, that number is just an insane beat. They see third quarter revenue at $16 billion plus or minus 2%, but the estimate's 12.5. They're seeing 16 versus 12.5. I mean, that's just insane. Plus a $25 billion share repurchase agreement. And the NVIDIA CFO says demand is tremendous. Tremendous. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of weakness in automotive. Who cares? Yeah, the buyback increase is insane. And they sold it. The stock closed negative. Really, really crazy. And how did that happen? Well, first of all, one of the things I always like to remind everybody going into an earnings report is that you will see on every single earnings report companies that beat every single number like NVIDIA did and totally sell off, or companies that miss on every single number and actually get bought up. There's a lot more to it, right? And who are we beating or missing here? Who creates those estimates? It's primarily sell-side analysts. You don't necessarily know the internal expectations of the folks who are actually, the big shareholders within the company. Next, stock got a big run into the report. Stock, made new all-time highs the day before yesterday on an intraday basis before selling off. Even that last earnings report, which was tremendous, and we had this huge gap up from, $304 to $380, huge. We continued to trade higher over the course of the last quarter from $380, where they gapped us up to $480. Another $100 there. Again, that's just a really big move. So, and I've talked about this, and this was my thesis, big picture coming into earnings season, and I tried to trade some options on it and wasn't successful on it, though I think as earnings season has ended now, that my thesis proved to be entirely correct. That companies in general that reported decent earnings did not trade well because they sold them off just because the moves have been so big into the reports. The valuation on Nvidia from a fundamental basis is also tremendous. The stock is really, really expensive. And I'm seeing Bill here out of the corner of my eye saying something that I also was going to mention that I also agree with. Is this type of demand sustainable? A lot of this might be almost geopolitical with the United States trying to shut down China and the Saudis from being and other countries from being able to load up on these AI chips, which personally is something that I'm against, but we'll leave politics out of it. Um, so if they're rushing to buy as many AI chips as they possibly can because they're afraid of getting shut out, that fast forwards a lot of this demand and maybe makes it not sustainable. And maybe they're the market participants are kind of reading through this report a little bit like, yeah, third quarter revenue 16 billion with an estimate, this is guidance of 12.5 is massive, but if it's one quarter, it doesn't necessarily justify the valuation that the stock is trading at. So that's kind of what I was thinking this morning, and I threw it out there. I typed it into the chat, and I said it again in the morning meeting. I was like, is there any chance that they actually sell this event? And then we all kind of decided, myself included, that it's certainly a possibility, and I even copied and pasted something out of Pat's note that talked about selling the event, which honestly, the fact that that even got mentioned in there probably was a signal that it was going to happen. They might sell the event, but is the risk reward really worth it? That was the other question. We talked about a short, maybe $500 as a key level after hours yesterday that you could take that trade on. And I kind of decided that I thought we would sell a bit here, and I was particularly nervous pre-market because the IWM was negative when we were doing the morning meeting. Even though the SPYs and Qs were positive, it seemed like we were being held up almost by thin air in the SPYs and Qs with the average stock just being weak, and it was just Nvidia that was kind of forcing everything to trade up. So that's why I shorted TQQQ. I did not have the tenacity to actually, do the Nvidia short. I had a decent little intraday scalp trade on the 5-minute chart when the 80 MA first touched it, which is a trade that I really like. Sold 80% of my position and then got stopped out of the other 20% of my position for a profit. But that's why I shorted the Qs. I was like, man, I'm just afraid that they're going to really sell this market down. And I remember seeing when I was on the train yesterday because I had to leave early that Apple had ticked negative at one point after the Nvidia report, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I feel like that could almost be a warning signal. There was no Apple news that was doing it. It was just more sellers than buyers. So bottom line is that they sold this market down. They sold it down really hard. And I don't know what else there is to save the market. So we got Jerome Powell tomorrow. I don't think we can count on him to save the market, but you never know what's actually going to happen. And if anything, there's a chance that a good degree of this selling was fast forwarded from tomorrow, where people were just selling into that event ahead of time. We'll see how that plays out, but unless we're able to stage a pretty quick rally somehow post Jerome Powell because the market likes what he says, or it's not as bad as people fear, or they sold into the event and then once the event is over they buy back the market. If that can't save us tomorrow as we're entering end of August here, beginning of September, this market's not looking good. And you get what did the VIX do today? I see you VIX's up 7%. Does anyone have a quote on the actual VIX? I'm trying to pull it up on another screen right now, but some of you guys might be able to beat me on it. Curious where the actual VIX is. $17.20. So keep an eye on that. If this VIX starts really pushing higher here, if we start getting above 18 or getting into $20 on the VIX, if these ranges increase, we know that these intraday moves when they're greater than 1% right now. And again, the SPY is closed down 1.5%. And it's actually from high to low is a much bigger intraday move than even 1.5% move. If the VIX keeps going higher and these ranges increase, then we're going to see more, forced selling that kind of comes into the market from the systematic funds. And then that could, I'm not saying it will, but that's how you begin to set up for, I think, the lower probability but really big move, like down to 420 in the SPYs, which is not what I'm calling for. I'm specifically saying it's a low probability move. But when you look at this daily candle in the SPYs and you look at this pivot high in the SPYs, man, you could be there by Tuesday at 420 in the SPYs, really, really quick and really hard and really fast. So we got to keep that in the back of our minds, even if it's a lower probability situation. I think that the probability actually is higher now than when we first discussed that a few days ago of getting that really fast move actually coming into the market. And that probability increased even further with the fact that they sold this whole market down on this NVIDIA report, and that this is a wide-ranging, engulfing, negative Maribozu penalty box candlestick in the marketplace. So let's see what happens tomorrow. I think Powell speaks at 10 a.m. But yeah, we're not looking good. As far as trading goes today, shout out to Cold Smoke Brian for putting VFS on the radar this morning. Bought small early. I added on the pullback. That low was 37.37. I was starting to think that this thing was not going to work out, and then it caught a great bounce, and I was giving my stop to the low. Made a nice little bull flag. This is probably the only tradable portion of this, really, was this bull flag and this inside 5 and up. Great volume on that inside 5. And then I was just trying to have a really loose trail. Like what I said was, I'm just going to get my risk covered and see if I can get a move to $100. I didn't get a move to $100. I got a move to 58. But all reward at that point. I almost felt like my P&L in this thing wasn't even real, so I didn't care. When I was up a good amount of money in it, I didn't care if I finished at 0 because I almost felt like it wasn't real. So once I got my risk covered, I was willing to give everything back to lows and close at 0 on it. But I also wanted to trail if I could. So eventually I raised my stop on a little bit less than half to this low, with the stop in a little bit more than half at lows. And then at a certain point when this thing was above $50, I raised my stop on everything to this low. When I got this pivot low at 10.10, that was coupled with the new high, so it fully followed my trailing rules. I raised the stop again. I was doing like a 2-tiered stop. So again, first everything was here, then I brought up, let's just call it half, even though it was less than half. I brought up half to here, then I brought up the other half. Then I brought up that first half to here, and I left the other half, which again was a little bit more than half, to here. And then when you get this push through failure here, that's actually when I raised my stop to that point. I got pushed out of that first half, but the other half I was still giving all the way down to 41.50 down here. Managed to not get stopped out. This low here was at 11:30 was 41.62. All these movements, and I didn't get stopped out by 12 cents. If Brant Hirsch is here, I like to give Brant a hard time. It would have gone down an extra 13 cents, but luckily he wasn't in it with me. And then, whatever. I basically was like, if it closes above 50, I'll keep it. If it closes below 50, I won't. It closed below it, so I didn't. I mean, look, this is a piece of garbage company, for lack of a less polite term. Vietnamese electric vehicle company that's like never made any money and has sold like 100 cars or something like that, if they even make cars. I mean, this is. I don't think this is ever going to turn into anything. It's probably worth like $1 a share, but it's a super low float thing, and we've just seen this happen so many times. And I know Dimitri was saying the other day that it almost needs to be like NASDAQ, where the regulators or somebody comes in and makes it so that this stuff can't happen anymore, because there's something wrong. And you look at this HKD when this came out, and I think this is a Chinese company, but I'm not even sure. But it was also one of these super low float things. You can see it, down here when it first comes out at like $10 or whatever. And then one just had this insane move where it went to $800 in 2 trading sessions. And I mean, it's just it was more than that. There's $800 in 2 trading sessions. Then I can't even read. My screen doesn't even want to show me what that first number was. Somewhere over 1,000. Was it 1,117 or was 2,000? 1,400? I'm seeing something. I just can't read the first number. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It went to some insane price. It was just like this VFS, honestly. Super low float, garbage company. Now where is it? It's $6. It's probably where it belongs. It's $6. But it was able to go to $2,000 just because it was such a low float. $2,500, $1,400, whatever it was. So, with this VFS, first of all, once these things get to be like $200, you can't even trade them anymore because there's zero liquidity. $2,555 approximately. Once these things get to like $200, you can't even trade them anymore because there's no liquidity. You don't want to short them because, I mean, sure, if you shorted HKD at $500, you were right. You're probably not listening to this meeting though, and you're probably never trading a stock again because you probably lost everything when your broker was calling you for that margin call and trying to come after your house for getting blown out at over $2,000. So it just doesn't matter. It's not worth shorting them. So, on the long side, it's like I think this thing's probably worth $1. But what the heck? If there's a trade set up there that's a momentum setup and it's still trading at $40, so there's some liquidity here. I can trade this thing. It's not like when it's at $500 and there's zero liquidity. Let me just get my risk covered and see what happens. And maybe, just maybe, even though it's low probability, I get an HKD. And I hold, it probably wouldn't be more than 100 shares, to be honest with you. But I end up holding 100 shares for that move to 2,500. And how do you even sell that at that point? I'm just trying to ask myself, if I had HKD at $2,000 and I was still long, $2,000, maybe $2,000 becomes $7,000. Like who knows? It's not going to be able to last. So I wonder where, in a hypothetical situation, if I had 100 shares of HKD for this type of move, where I would sell it. And the cool thing is, I was really trying to hold, more than 100 shares of this VFS. That was my thought process. I was like, I'll sell 100 shares at $75. I'll sell 100 shares at $100. And then whatever, we'll see what we'll see what happens if it can get up there, and it didn't. But I was like, all right, let me just implement a trailing approach, and if it lets me trail to $2,000, great. And if I get stopped out of some stock, then fine, I get stopped out of some stock. I closed off my highs in it, obviously, because it was at $58, and my best sale was more or less around $49 or so into the close, and on this sell stop when it triggered at 48.50, which I got zero slippage on, which was really, really nice actually. And that way I can make sure I lock in some money no matter what and just see what it can do. So I mean, I traded this VFS Insanity. I traded that TQQQ to the short side, which I shorted pre-market. That was nice. I was all out of this thing by $40 though, so shame on me, I guess, on that for not trailing some. That NVIDIA trade on the first touch of the ADMA here off that bounce is pretty good. I sold the majority of my position in that. I got stopped out of a little bit of the rest at lows. And I took a small loss in AI because I was able to sell a little bit trying to buy this thing kind of in the $30 area. I had to go to the dentist, so I ended up just putting my stop at the low of the inside 5 and getting stopped out and going to get my teeth drilled on. So that's pretty much it. Pretty much, kind of sums up my day. Obviously, the big news here is just how the market handled NVIDIA and this daily chart candle that we're looking at in the SPYs and Qs, which is just scary. It's a scary looking candle. So that's all I got. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. What's a firm doing after hours? All over the place. Up, down, and now back up. The firm numbers look pretty good to me. Just scrolling here in the VTF to see if I missed any questions. It doesn't look like it. Let's go over to the YouTube. We got some chatter in the YouTube. What's up, everybody who's following along in there? Sebastian, I wanted to ask you about yesterday. In your morning game plan, were you expecting that move up? I thought we would have a choppy rest session. I got caught by surprise by that rally. So what I said for yesterday's morning meeting, if I remember correctly, is that I was also planning on going in it cautiously, but if the market could break the prior day's high, it would be really significant and, potentially changes the entire market. So was I expecting that? No. Similar to you, I think was expecting a little bit more of a rest day, but I was also able to react a little bit to the breaking of the high from the day before that, and I still have long exposure from this low. And that's just the way that I trade, If I give stock all the way back, and give back a lot of profit, I don't care, because there's other times in which, you just keep getting more and more and more and more. And that's not to say I wasn't piecing out of the longs either on the way up. Even after hours yesterday, I mean, if all I get is what I got after hours yesterday and this morning, I'll be happy with that, because I was able to sell a lot of Palantir after hours. I was calling up the trade support team from the train. I was that guy on the Long Island Railroad. Everyone hates that guy who's on the Long Island Railroad and he's on the phone. That was me. I was like, guys, I need you to sell some stock in Palantir for me at 16 here after hours. Can you do that for me? And I was able to sell some stock up there. So I had gotten down to a lighter position in this thing. So if that's all I get, that's all I get. But yeah, I'm kind of similar to you there, Sebastian. I was looking for more of a rest day, but once we cleared the previous day's high, I thought that was a signal. The 26th was Jackson last year, so the August sell-off had already started a little bit. Usually market reactions to the Fed chief speeches at the Kansas City Fed's annual Jackson Hole Economic Symposium are much more muted than the washout stocks experienced on August 26, 2022. Yes, for sure. For sure. But I appreciate the Fed members giving us some excitement at the end of August, because otherwise it would be really boring. I mean, this has not been a boring late August between earnings season and how the market itself has been moving. We've had a few trading days for sure that felt like that, end of August price action where the midday is very slow and choppy. But overall, this has not been a boring summer. Cool. So it's everything in YouTube. Back over to the VTF. I think I got one from Elliot here asking us to look at a trade. Roblox. I went long at 11:05, given the brutality of the daily chart and the relative strength this morning with the consolidation close to highs. All right, so we all know what this daily chart looks like because we've been talking about this name a little bit. The degree of destruction since that earnings report has been incredible. The earnings report wasn't great. I didn't think it was that bad though either, to be totally honest. They sold this thing down from 32.50. With a couple days of rest of time correction here, we broke lower, and then it's just been gross continuation from $30 down to like 26. Red bar after red bar after red bar. Some real relative weakness I remember on the 18th when the market bounced back a little bit. That was that Friday that we were really calling for those longs pre-market and at the market open that were so great. Roblox did not participate. It closed weak. Every day it's closing almost at lows. And then finally today, we got a push through of yesterday's low by 1 penny. And Pat called that out for a long right down here in the VTF, which is a great call out. And then the thing rallied and finally had some relative strength throughout the trading session. That's some background there as we look at your question. So you took a buy at 11:05. Tough time of day, we know that. Because it was consolidating close to highs. It was showing really good relative strength. Cool, I agree with all that. I was thinking if the market could bounce at all, that Roblox could go. Okay, I agree with that thought process where the strength was. Our price was $26.75. I was just risking 10 cents with a stop at $26.65. Okay, I think that's an appropriate stop. It's like that's these pivot lows right here. So it's the low of the consolidation basically, which is the bottom of the consolidation. It went to $26.85, and I didn't get filled on my 1-to-1, and I got stopped. Sounds like you just barely missed it. I took small risk because it was a grade C trade, given the market and time of day, but I thought the trade was worth it. Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you entirely, everything that you're saying. I don't love the time of day, and you're recognizing that, and you're not going full risk on your trade. You took smaller risk on it. You got a decent looking chart set up. You got relative strength. You do have a really weak market, but like you said, it's 11 o'clock. We get a lot of midday reversals these days, given 0 DTE, though that's changed a little bit in August. It's not, you know, stabilization. Even if the market just was able to stabilize and not act as a detriment to your trade, Roblox with its relative strength could have given another intraday breakout and gone, right? So I like that. I like how you're viewing the layers of probability. I like that you didn't go max risk because the market was a little bit against you at that point. There's certainly room on the daily chart for this thing to pay you. You've got really great low intraday risk, 10 cents risk on it. You might have even been able to take a little bit more risk on the trade. Might be the only feedback that I would give. I don't love that time of day. You know, market's a little bit against you, but I think that there were some other things there that were really supporting your trade. So, yeah, I can't hate on it at all. I think it was fine. No problem. Disney getting hit. Wow, Disney working its way towards that $80 we talked about. Any other questions today, gang? And end of August, I don't mind doing shorter afternoon meetings at the end of August, and it's 10 to 5 now. Okay, cool. So, shorter meeting today, not as many questions, and that's fine. Have a great night, everybody, and I will see you all tomorrow.